When the world sleeps, I awaken. I am the voice in the silence. I am the fear behind the door. I am Dark Whisper. And these are the stories that were never meant to be heard. Turn off the lights, if you dare. They said I was lucky to survive the crash. That night, I was unconscious, drenched in blood, and pulled out of the mangled wreckage of my car like a corpse. I should have died, but somehow, I didn't. Instead, I woke up in St. Alora's General Hospital, a place that seemed oddly disconnected from reality. The walls were white, too white, almost glowing. The air was thick with antiseptic and something else, something that smelled like rot masked beneath layers of bleach. I couldn't move at first, just lay there staring at the flickering overhead light, which buzzed and dimmed like it was breathing. Nurses came and went, faces blurred in my groggy vision, but I remember one thing clearly, the voices. They didn't speak to me. Not at first. They whispered to each other in the corners, behind curtains, in places where no one stood. Voices too low for me to understand, but heavy with emotion, sadness, rage, pleading. At first, I thought it was medication-induced hallucinations. But as the days passed and I regained my strength, the voices became clearer, and far more disturbing. The whispers began to form words. At night, when the hallway lights dimmed and the nurses retreated to their station, I would hear them more vividly. "He's not supposed to be here," one would hiss. "He saw too much," another would groan. Once, a guttural sob echoed through the vent above my bed, followed by the chilling sound of metal scraping across tile, as if a gurney was being dragged, slowly, by something not human. I rang the call button repeatedly, but no one came. Hours passed. My door creaked open sometime after midnight, but there was no one there, only a cold draft that carried with it the scent of old blood. The next morning, I asked the nurse if someone had visited during the night. She looked confused and said, "No one's allowed in after 10. Your door was locked." I started to doubt my sanity, until I met room 217. An old man named Henry was brought in, screaming about voices in the walls. The staff sedated him quickly, but before he passed out, he pointed at me and said, "They're watching him too. Tell him to stop listening." Henry didn't last long. The next day, his bed was empty and the nurses told me he was transferred. But I overheard them whispering behind the curtain. He bit off his own tongue. That night, the voices screamed. Not whispered. Screamed. My ears rang with the pain of dozens of tortured souls shouting in overlapping cries, "Help me, he's coming, it hurts." I pressed my palms over my ears, but the sound was inside my skull. I stumbled out of bed, dragging my 4-pole, trying to escape my room. The hallway was worse. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, and cold wind blew in every direction, though no windows were open. Then I saw her, a nurse, but not one I recognized. Her uniform was stained with blood, her face half burned, and her eyes completely black. She stood at the far end of the hall, pointing at me. Not moving. Not blinking. Just pointing. I backed away slowly, whispering, "This isn't real, this isn't real," but her arm extended longer, impossibly long, stretching toward me until the lights above shattered in a cascade of sparks. I blacked out. When I woke up, I was back in bed, the hallway calm. But my 4 bag had been replaced with something else. The label read, "Donor, unknown. Batch, 1963. I tried to leave the hospital. I demanded release, argued with the doctor, even threatened legal action. But every time I tried to contact someone, my calls didn't go through. My parents' numbers led to disconnected tones. Emails bounced back. The hospital's Wi-Fi showed as St. Alora guest, but never connected. One afternoon, I snuck into the records room, hoping to find patient files and figure out what this place really was. What I found instead made my blood run cold. The file with my name had been typed on a typewriter. The date? August 14, 1971. There were pages stained with blood, and a photo of me, not as I looked now, but as a corpse. Pale. Eyes open. Mouth agape. The label read, "Deceased on arrival." I dropped the file and ran, heart pounding, but the walls seemed to stretch endlessly. I swear I heard someone laughing inside the elevator shaft, echoing over and over, like a child giggling at a cruel joke. When I finally returned to my room, a message was written across the mirror in red, "You never left the crash." I started to piece things together. The accident, the missing time, the fact that none of the staff ever aged, all of it pointed to one thing: I wasn't supposed to be alive. But what did that mean? Was this hell? Purgatory? A coma dream? I confronted the head nurse, a woman named Margot who always wore a silver cross. "What is this place?" I asked. She stared at me for a long time before finally whispering, "Some people don't die clean." That night, the voices returned, clearer than ever. I began recognizing them: my friend Connor, who died years ago from overdose, my grandmother, who passed away in hospice. They spoke to me, not as ghosts, but as if they were stuck, trapped in this realm between death and forgetting. I asked them what they wanted. A voice, low and hoarse, replied, "Revenge." The lights flickered violently, alarms blared without cause, and doors slammed shut all down the hallway. A riot of the dead. They wanted justice, not from me, but from the hospital itself. That night I did something desperate. I stole a keycard from an orderly and found my way to the basement. The door read, "Authorized personnel only," but it was rusted and ajar. The moment I entered, the temperature dropped. Flickering lights revealed long-forgotten surgery rooms, covered in dust and cobwebs. One room had hundreds of jars lining the shelves, each containing something unholy: fingers, eyeballs, tongues. In the center was a large operating table with straps. The blood on it was fresh. And beside it stood a priest, or what looked like one. His collar was blackened, and he held a book that proclaimed. "You were not meant to wake," he said without looking at me. "The ritual was incomplete. Your soul lingers. Now you hear them." I tried to run, but something held me in place: hands, dozens of invisible hands clinging to my legs, my arms, pulling me toward the table. The last thing I saw before passing out was the priest whispering, "You brought the voices with you." When I woke, I was back in my room. Everything seemed normal. Too normal. The nurse brought breakfast, smiled politely, and the TV played the morning news. But the news was dated 10 years ago. I looked around, the same flowers sat in the same vase, untouched. The clock ticked backward. I rushed to the mirror and stared. My reflection didn't mimic me. It blinked when I didn't. It smiled while I panicked. Then it spoke, "You're not in control anymore." I screamed and shattered the glass with my forestand, but beneath the broken shards, there was no wall, only darkness. A void. And from within it, dozens of hands reached out, dragging the shards inward as if they were trying to escape through the mirror. My reflection was gone. I sat on the floor sobbing, realizing that I was merely a visitor in my own body, a shell for something else to wear. The hospital hadn't healed me. It had harvested me. It's been months, or days, or maybe minutes. Time doesn't work here. I still hear the voices, but now they argue. Some want me to escape. Others want me to stay. They fight inside my skull, scratching and gnawing at my sanity. Sometimes I see myself walking the halls at night, or at least something wearing my face. The staff ignores it. The patients scream when it passes. I tried ending it once. I jumped from the third-floor window, only to land back in bed as if nothing happened. The priest visited again, this time smiling. "You're not a patient," he said. "You're part of the staff now." I asked what he meant. He handed me a clipboard with names. Names of new arrivals. Names I recognize. My parents. My sister. They're coming here. And I'll be the one who greets them. The whispers fade, but the darkness never sleeps. If you felt the chill, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. More true horror awaits you, every single night. Until then, sleep tight. If you can. Smiling face with horns. Headphone dark whispers, where fear finds a voice.